Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. The Cleveland Indians officially have a new name, announcing the news in a new video.
You see, it has always been Cleveland. That's the best part of our name. And now it's time to unite as one family, one community. Because this is the city we love and the game we believe in. And together, we are all Cleveland Guardians.
You heard it there from Tom Hanks. The Cleveland Indians are now the Cleveland Guardians. The change comes after years of controversy over the former name and logo. Manager Terry Francona said earlier this month that he believed it was time to move forward. Meanwhile, health officials are sounding the alarm on the Delta variant. In Florida, new cases are up almost 500% over the last month, and daily hospital admissions increased by nearly 55% in the last week alone. Now, more cities are tightening restrictions. New Orleans and Philadelphia have joined Los Angeles in recommending that even vaccinated people wear masks indoors. And the Summer Olympics are officially here. Tennis star Naomi Osaka lit the torch to cap off the opening ceremonies, which looked very different from past years. A nearly empty stadium greeted athletes as most of their friends and family watched from home. Meanwhile, outside the stadium, protesters broke out into loud chants against the games as COVID cases in Japan hit a 6-month high. Foreign correspondent James Longman is in Tokyo with the latest. Hi, James.
Yeah, good morning, Diane. This is a very different opening ceremony indeed. Much more pared back than in any previous year. Obviously, that stadium should hold something like 68,000 people, and it's only got about 950 guests there at the moment. The vast majority of those foreign dignitaries. Jill Biden, of course, leading the U.S. Delegation, and watching the athletes come in on the flag procession has also been rather sad. Far smaller groups than you would normally see. Team USA only about a third of their athletes here for this, and Simone Biles and the U.S. gymnastics team deciding not to come. They are, remember, not staying in the Olympic Village because of worries about COVID, and they've decided to host their own little celebration at their accommodation. But separately, we've also seen 150 athletes, among them Tommy Smith, John Carlos and Gwen Barry, who've signed a letter together with activists and educators asking the IOC not to punish participants who demonstrated at the Tokyo Games. Now, this is in relation to people taking the knee during football matches, soccer matches, and other sporting events here. Now, the IOC has actually relaxed their Rule 50, which says that you cannot make any kind of political demonstration during the games. So what we've seen soccer players take the knee before their matches, which is allowed. But what this letter asks for is for those demonstrations to be allowed during events, even for those demonstrations to be allowed in the Olympic Village and in other parts of the kind of Olympic bubble. We will see what the IOC says. I think it's very unlikely that they will relent. This is already a big exception they're making to allow people to take the knee. But certainly everything about these games is different than ever before. Diane?
All right, James Longman in Tokyo, thank you. And as kids prepare to return to in-person learning this fall, a new study is exposing the impact the pandemic has had on language and development, as well as communication skills. According to the Education Endowment Foundation, children have needed more support in speech and language this year than in previous years. 55 out of 57 of schools also said they were either very concerned or quite concerned about communication and language development. So let's bring in speech-language pathologist at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona, Sarah Charney, for more on this. Sarah, thanks so much for being here. Just how bad is it, do you think? How much did this strange time in school, at home, and so on have on the language development and the communication of our kids?
Good question. Nice to be here today. Thank you, Diane. So, when I wrote this article about the potential impact of these preventative strategies, I think time will tell. I don't think we actually know yet. But I think mask wearing, social distancing, virtual learning, I think although these measures are very necessary and important, based on what we know about speech and language development, we hypothesize that there may be some potential unintended consequences regarding the potential impact of mass blocking visual cues for the listener. We know lip reading is very important for speech and language development. Some studies have shown, sensors on babies, they track their attention and found that infants initially pay more attention to the speaker's eyes. And then around 8 months old, they shift their attention to the speaker's lips. So I think that alone really shows us the potential impact that this can have in the future. They've really shown correlations between lip reading and the amount of time that a baby pays attention to a speaker's mouth, and then vocabulary outcomes later. So I think we do have some of that information now.
Yeah, we did a piece a few months ago about special needs kids and how they've been affected. And one of the kids that we featured had a hearing impairment. And his mother said it was really difficult for him to do classes on Zoom because he's not old enough to read closed captions and he can't hear what the teacher is saying. So how have you seen the pandemic disproportionately affecting kids with special needs and particularly those with hearing loss?
Absolutely. That is definitely a more vulnerable population. We know that masks are known to degrade the speech signal and reduce the volume of certain high frequency sounds that are important for understanding speech. This can, again, be especially difficult for not only everyone, but especially for people with hearing loss, which actually affects about 1 to 2 children in every 1,000 babies that are born per year. And these children already, as you kind of mentioned, already have difficulty with speech perception. So between the lower volume and the lack of ability to read lips, which they often heavily rely on, they are put at a further disadvantage.
And so what's the long-term impact here? Because we've heard when it comes to general setbacks in education, a lot of professionals have said, listen, this is what we do. Don't worry. We will get the kids caught up once they're back in the classroom. So does the same apply here as it does for, math and science and some of the other topics when it comes to our kids' language development, their communication skills? How long do you think it'll take for us to make up for that lost time?
That's an excellent question. I don't think I have the answer to it, but what I do think is that, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the teachers that have been having to deal with this for over 1.5 years now. And I think they have been able to be so creative and resourceful with what they have and teaching in an essentially virtual world. And so I think the teachers are already doing what they can. I think things that, preventative strategies that we can put into place is clear masks is one. Our audiologists and our teachers have, been, I think, the best at adopting these right now, and they can provide better visual cues that are lacking with the regular masks. Other things that we can do to try to prevent or at least lessen these effects is optimizing the audio and visual environment, especially in classrooms and other learning environments, reducing background noise, using microphones or personal amplification whenever possible, using the mute button when necessary in Zoom settings. So I think, it's hard to say what the long-term effects will be at this point, but I think what we can do is just put into effect some of these preventative measures so that we can at least lessen these effects. And I would also just want to encourage parents who are concerned about language delays or speech and language development difficulties to reach out to their pediatricians, who will probably refer them to an audiologist or a speech language pathologist just to make sure that they're on track.
These are great practical tips. We appreciate it. Speech language pathologist at Mayo Clinic, Arizona, Sarah Charney. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And coming up, country music star Morgan Wallen is speaking exclusively to ABC News in his first interview since he was filmed using a racial slur.
What made you think that the word was ever appropriate to use?
Hear how he says the incident changed him and how he plans to make amends going forward. Stay with us. Welcome back. Country music star Morgan Wallen is speaking out in his first interview since he was caught on camera using a racial slur earlier this year. Wallen opened up about everything from racism in the music industry to his recent trip to rehab. Here's Michael Strahan.
There are going to be a lot of people who are going to watch this interview and say he's only sitting down because he wants to clean up his image. It's all a performance. So what do you say to that?
I understand that, I understand that I'm not ever going to make, everyone happy. I can only come tell my truth, and that's all I know to do. Line them up and knock them down, 2 more, let's go, 'cause I ain't never heard like this before.
28-year-old country music star Morgan Wallen quickly rose to fame with his 5-time multi-platinum chart-topping hit, Whiskey Glasses.
I'ma need some whiskey glasses.
The single cementing his place in country music, and his latest album, Dangerous, released in January, is the highest-selling and streaming album in all of music in the U.S. this year.
7 summers ago.
But in January, neighbors recorded this video obtained by TMZ, showing Wallen using a racial slur outside his Nashville home. The music world responded swiftly. Within hours, Wallen was suspended from his label, his songs pulled from the radio and streaming playlists, and he was declared ineligible for the upcoming Academy of Country Music Awards. When did you realize that what you had done was a big deal?
My manager called me probably 2 hours before the video came out. You know, he's like, "Are you sitting down?" And no one's ever called me and said that before. I went to one of my friends has a house, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. Just sitting in that house trying to figure out what it is I'm supposed to do.
So take me back to that night.
I had some of my, you know, longtime friends in town. You know, we'd kind of just been partying all weekend, and we figured we'd just go hard for the 2 or 3 days that they were there.
How did this happen? Out of nowhere? You just refer to someone with a racial slur?
No, I don't think it just happened. You know, I was around some of my friends, and you know, we stayed dumb stuff together. It was, in our minds, it's playful. You know, I don't know if that sounds ignorant, but that's really where it came from, and it's wrong.
And had there been no video of the incident, we obviously wouldn't be sitting here right now. This is not the first time you said the word. This is the word that you use frequently amongst your friends.
I wouldn't say frequently, no, not frequently. It was just around this certain group of friends, I would say.
In what way was it used?
You know, it's one of my best friends. We were all clearly drunk, and I was asking his girlfriend to take care of him because he was drunk and he was leaving. I didn't mean it in any derogatory manner at all.
There are a lot of people going to say, okay, we've been drunk, we never used the word. Even when you're drunk, there are certain things you do and you don't do. What made you think that the word was ever appropriate to use?
I'm not sure. I think I was just ignorant about it. I don't think I sat down and was like, "Hey, is this right or is this wrong?"
And do you know the history of the word?
Oh yeah, I've heard some stories in the initial conversations that I had after that, just how some people are, you know, treated even still today. And I'm just like, I haven't seen that with my eyes, that pain or that insignificant feeling or whatever it is that it makes you feel.
That goes back to slavery used by white people to dehumanize black people, make them feel less than.
Exactly.
It's also, I think if you dig deeper, a word that a lot of black people heard before they were terrorized, beaten, or even possibly killed. So it's a word that really, I've been called it, makes you mad, makes you angry, doesn't make you feel good at all. So do you understand why it makes black people so upset?
I don't know how to put myself in their shoes because I'm not, you know, but I do understand it, especially when I say that I'm using it playfully or whatever, ignorantly. I understand that must sound, you know, like he doesn't understand.
More than a week after Wallen was caught on camera using a racial slur, he posted this video apologizing and asking his fans not to defend his actions.
I also accepted some invitations from some amazing black organizations, some executives and leaders to engage in some very real and honest conversations.
Who did you speak with?
BMAC is one of the first organizations that I spoke with, the Black Music Action Coalition. I spoke with Kevin Lyles, I spoke with Eric Hutcherson, with B.B. Winans is another one that I spoke with. I went and checked myself into rehab, and for 30 days I spent some time out in San Diego, California. You know, just trying to figure it out. Why am I acting this way? Do I have an alcohol problem? Do I have a deeper issue?
In the 9 days following the release of the video, downloads of Wallen's album skyrocketed by 500%. And that album has spent 24 weeks as #1 on the top country album charts.
Before this incident, my album was already doing well. It was already being well received by critics and by fans. Me and my team noticed that whenever this whole incident happened, that there was a spike in my sales. So we tried to calculate what the number of how much it actually spiked, from this incident, and we got to a number somewhere around $500,000, and we decided to donate that money to some organizations, BMAC being the first one.
ABC News reached out to BMAC, but has not heard back. For some black country music artists, this controversy highlighted the racial disparities within the industry.
In the land of the free, you should try to be black like me.
The first black female country singer to be nominated for a Grammy, Mickey Guyton, tweeting, "When I read comments saying that this is not who we are, I laugh, because this is exactly who country music is. I question on a daily basis as to why I continue to fight to be in an industry that seems to hate me so much." So do you believe there is a race problem in country music overall?
I mean, it would seem that way. Yeah. I haven't really sat and thought about that.
Although he was widely condemned by the industry back in the spring, Morgan Wallen has emerged from this scandal to become the best-selling artist of the year so far, according to Rolling Stone magazine. Some radio stations and award shows may have dropped him, but it didn't stop fans from buying his albums and streaming his music. Diane.
All right, Michael Strahan, thanks for that. And I want to bring in SiriusXM radio host and ABC News contributor Mike Muse, as well as Elsie Granderson, host of Life Out Loud podcast here on ABC News, for a little bit more on this. Elsie, first of all, thank you both for being here. Elsie, I'll start with you, because Wallen says this was dumb, but it was meant to be playful, not derogatory, and he admits he was ignorant. So what's your reaction to that? Do you accept his explanation and apology?
I accept his explanation. His apology is lacking to me, because I think there are some gaps there that either we didn't see because they were edited out, or they weren't brought up, or he didn't point to. Because it's just hard for me to listen to him talk about not being aware of that word, not being aware of the pain, while also being in this country since the death of George Floyd, since the murder of George Floyd. So what you're telling me is, through all of this 24/7 news coverage, through all of these national discussions, through all of these protests, through some of the riots, through all of this, it never dawned on you to see what this discussion was about? It never occurred to you to just spend 5 minutes just to even, do a cursory sort of overlook of this, of what's happening in society? I mean, we're not talking about Juneteenth or the Tulsa Massacre being scrubbed out of history books. We're talking about, in your lifetime, real racial tension is unfolding in our streets, and you want us to believe that you were just ignorant and naive. Now, I may accept your apology, but I'm not going to accept the rationale that you're trying to spin. What it sounds like to me, Diane and Mike, that you were well coached up, because the one word you didn't say during this interview was racism. And that is typically what happens when a good PR firm gets a hold of a white person who says something racist. The first thing they tell them is, don't say racism.
It's an interesting take. I didn't know that. Mike, as we heard in the piece, Wallen's album sales, they skyrocketed since the video came out. What do you make of that? And then his decision to donate the money to organizations like the Black Music Action Coalition, the extra money he says he made.
What's interesting about this time is racism has always been, for black people, racism has always been real. Racism is something we've always experienced on a day-to-day basis. Racism is something we think about every day. When we get up, you're thinking about race and racism. How am I going to be perceived? What I mean when I get up is meaning, how am I going to wear my hair today? And particularly, where will I be? What outfit should I wear? I would like to wear a hoodie because it's a fall Saturday. I want to run some errands, but I may be perceived differently. So maybe I need to wear a sweatshirt. Right? Or do I need to wear this suit to this business meeting when really I could just wear a polo and some slacks? But let me think differently and let them see me as safe. So these are things that black people have to deal with on a daily basis. So race is always a part of our narrative. With white people, there's always this narrative of, is it really that bad? You have a first black president. You guys are successful, right? Look at Oprah, right? So there's always these things that people point to in terms of racial progress, and there has been racial progress. But now what's interesting, Diane, is, I'm a big fan of data. We're seeing data now for the first time. When we used to talk about the cops putting and planting evidence on black people, white America never believed us until the video came out of that actually happening. We actually now have data points where elected officials publicly have made racist statements, literally racist, condescending statements, and yet people still pull the trigger and vote yes for them. That's a data point that says we support racism. And now what we're seeing in this data point with this country music star is that he has said racism and said the word, and yet his album sales have gone up. His streams have gone up. There is protest, right, and economic protest where you protest a brand for maybe supporting individuals who you don't seem as supportive of a community. But there also, too, is a protest on the other side of leaning into support of whatever negative, derogatory racism slurs are being hurled and saying, by me streaming, by me buying, by me supporting, I'm saying what you did is okay. I am in allyship with you, so therefore I am going to stream. So those are three now data points of where racism has inherently existed, and the economics of racist support is now that is there. Donating the $500,000 to me is just a campaign PR spin. Just as Elsie mentioned, these PR firms, they get paid a lot of money to do damage control. It's pure damage control. As soon as a white individual gets in trouble with racism, who do they call first? A notable civil rights leader. They give to a notable legacy civil rights organization. And so this is part, for me, of just a PR narrative.
So, Elsie, how do you then move forward from something like this? How does someone like Wallen, who's now admitting that it seems that at least that there's a race problem in country music, how does country music come forward from this? But also, how does Wallen go forward? If calling, doing all those things that Mike just mentioned and you mentioned isn't the right way forward, what is?
Well, it's about continually doing the work. Once you get past this particular phase, how are you living your life going forward? Assuming, of course, the apology comes from a sincere place and you really do want to be better in this space. I will say that, as someone who is a country music fan, and everyone who listens to me on the radio station out in Los Angeles for ESPN knows this. I sing country music all the time. I have plenty of friends who are in country music. So I'm not coming at this conversation as an interloper. I'm coming in as a legitimate fan. And I remember having a conversation with the two singers from Montgomery Gentry who did a remake of a song that Kenny Chesney had done. And in that song, Kenny Chesney originally had talked about his father telling him, don't trust the colored fella. But when Montgomery Gentry redid the song, they substituted colored for the other fella. Don't trust the other fella. And that song became a big hit. And when I asked them why did they change the word, they hem and they hawed about it. And I had to stop listening to their music because I just can't roll with you like that. Like, if you want to do this conversation for real, then let's do this conversation for real. Because I know plenty of country artists who can tell you everything about the Confederacy, who can tell you everything about the flag and standing up for, freedom and all of that stuff. But when it comes to Black history, they seem to draw a blank, as if the Confederacy existed with.
Oh. It looks like we lost Elsie. Oh, wait, Elsie, I think we've got you back. You froze there for a second, but go ahead.
So I just want to say, when it comes to, country music just in general, the industry needs to really be honest with itself and start pretending as if it can talk about its Southern roots and not talk about Black pain, not talk about Black people. They've done that way too long. Now, there have been some artists, Sugarland, Kenny Chesney, as I said before, that's at least are willing to come close to the conversation. Eric Church is another one. But far too long, this industry, which is rooted a lot in the South, wants to have these conversations romanticizing this period in American history without talking about the pain. And that's part of the reason why you have an artist like this guy saying that he was ignorant, because for decades and decades and decades, the industry that he has now joined has purposely ignored Black pain while talking about this romanticized version of the Southern white.
So, Mike, do you think that we'll also see a shift now that we have more Black country music artists coming up in the industry?
What's interesting about this whole conversation is it's not just about the race and the black pain, but it's a race and black history from country music. Country music was birthed out of black music. Country music was birthed out of the Delta of Mississippi. Country music was birthed out of the sub-Saharan Africa with the banjo was brought over here. And so it is black music. That's what's also so interesting about the narrative of country music. So then you have artists like Jimmy Allen and Yola and Kane Brown, Darius Rucker, who are made to feel like they're other in a genre that was really birthed out of black music and of their history and their heritage. And so I think that is one. I think we will see more country music artists that are black emerge. We see that happening like right now. One thing to know, I don't want to get overlooked, is why I think that Morgan knew what he was doing. There specifically, he says, when Michael asked him that question, he said, you know, it's not something I say all the time. It's just something I say with these group of friends. For me, that's what stood out, these group of friends. So he knew the word was bad, because if the word wasn't bad, and if the word was just slang, then why did he use it with all of his friends? And so for me, the word, you have to pay attention to the word choice of how he used it, which is why I find that whole conversation very complicated from Morgan's standpoint of view.
All right. Always great to hear from you both, Elsie, Granderson, Mike Muse. Thank you. And I also want to point out, Elsie, something I didn't overlook. You said you like to sing country music, so I'm still awaiting my country music serenade, Elsie. Thank you, guys.
It will come to you as soon as we have karaoke night.
Yes. Yes. That cannot come soon enough. Thank you, guys. Have a great one. And coming up, after facing off against more than 100 debaters, we are going to introduce you to the debate duo making history at Harvard. Our Feel Good Friday is coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. It is time for Feel Good Friday, where we bring you a little good news heading into the weekend. And today, it's all about the debate duo making history at Harvard. Imani Stanton and Jayla Jackson are now the first black female duo to win Harvard's summer debate competition after facing off against more than 100 debaters and staying undefeated for all 10 rounds. Take a look.
They work 40 hours a week, making the NCAA billions of dollars, preventing them from getting a job to sustain themselves like other college students do. Approximately 40 to 45% of D1 and D2 students report wanting to spend more time working a job. Judge, these students want to work jobs to knowledge that the minimum wage is only a day's pay. This is modern day slavery, and on Juneteenth, this is for Shabazz Napier, the UConn star senior point guard, who reports that he goes home hungry after games due to lack of money. Kyle Hendrick, who lost his basketball scholarship in Oklahoma after tearing his meniscus. This is for Brandon Finley, who after obtaining a career-ending injury was tossed to the side because he was no longer of use. Judge, if you have an ounce of empathy for the hardworking students who bring you March Madness and merch, if you believe that education is not second to entertainment, you must vote for the affirmative.
Whew, it's exhausting just watching it. I'm so happy to have Imani and Jayla joining me now, along with the founder of the Harvard Debate Council Diversity Project, Brandon Fleming. Thank you all for being here, and a huge congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Imani, how does it feel not only being the new champions of Harvard's annual summer debate competition, but to be the first female black duo to hold the title?
It feels far greater than I could just materialize in words, but it really feels great because I get to share the moment. It's not just a victory for myself, but it's a victory for the Harvard Diversity Project, for my partner Jayla, for Mr. Fleming, and for all the people that we worked so hard for the past year in the Harvard Diversity Project to make proud and a legacy that we continued in order and be able to be that person that a little girl can look at and say, she did what I want to do and I can follow in her footsteps. And that is just a feeling that I can't even materialize it in words.
Now, Brandon, tell us about the Harvard Debate Council Diversity Project and what inspired you to start that?
Yes, so the Harvard Diversity Project is a pipeline program based in Atlanta. It is designed to recruit underserved Black youth, to train them and feed them into the Harvard Debate Council's summer residency. And I was able to start this program back in 2017. And the reason why is because I believe if we identify a problem, we have a responsibility to be the solution. And so I'm so grateful that when I recognized the lack of African-American representation at Harvard, that they gave me permission to start this program to show the world what's possible when we practice educational equity.
Now, Jayla, you two went undefeated for 10 rounds. So what was that like as you went on? Did you feel like the pressure was building? Did you get more and more nervous as you went on? Or did you feel like we got this?
I think as the rounds went on, it became like a love and hate relationship with the competition. Like we were excited that we were progressing and that we were doing well in the competition. But as it went on, it got harder. We went against more and more talented teams. And so for us, the pressure increased, but also, and we tell many outlets is that we saw it more as a blessing and not a burden. And having that mindset allowed us to do so well because we just kept good energy. Imani, supported me. I supported Imani, and just having that teamwork during the competition helped us immensely.
So what message do you both want to send to young kids who are maybe looking to get into debate?
For me, I always say, even if you are nervous, debate is an activity that builds your confidence and doesn't just sharpen your abilities as a debater, but it sharpens your ability to navigate through this world, to be able to communicate and have a great vocabulary and just has positive discourse. And you can make negative things like arguments into positive outcomes. And it's always a thing to have, as you can see, have a platform, because it is a majority male field and a majority not filled with minorities. So it is a place that needs to be filled with girls like us so that we have that representation in all spaces.
Similar to Imani, for those who are looking to get into debate, I highly encourage it. Even if you don't plan on being a debater in college or you don't plan on really debating, for sport, it's still interesting to get into because debate has altered the way that I think. Things that I would just take as face value or that I would take as law, now I question everything. And doing that has allowed me to create unique and diverse perspectives about the world that are, unique to me and how I feel. It has allowed me to merge, my personal and intellectual side of me. So having that intellectualism, but finding a medium that has allowed me to diversify the way in which I communicate with others, I think is one of the best skills that, it has given me.
Love that. And so before we let you go, we want to put your skills to the test. So we actually have a little debate of our own to answer the very important age-old questions, pancakes versus waffles. So Imani, you're arguing pancakes. Jayla, you've got waffles. You each get 30 seconds on the clock. And Imani, you're going to be up first with pancakes. 30 seconds on the clock. Everyone ready?
Yes.
All right. Ready, set, Imani, pancakes, go.
Pancakes are superior in 2 ways. Contention 1, health. BettyCrocker.com reports that waffles have a 5% more fat than pancakes and contain a higher percentage of sugar. Health is a scalar endeavor, meaning it needs to be prioritized in all instances. Choosing pancakes over waffle is a vote for the prioritization of health. Contention 2, accessibility. Judge waffle require families to buy an entirely separate appliance to produce. Beyond the sheer inefficiency of this, it creates a veil of inaccessibility. According to my budget recipes, waffle makers retail for between $20 and $40. $20 and $40 for an appliance that only has one purpose. Let's compare that to the utility of a pan. The equipment to make a pancake isn't nearly as restrictive and it offers much more diversity. Therefore, judge should vote pancakes.
Time. All right. Wow. So we've got health concerns in there. We've got space in my cabinet because I need an extra appliance. I'm listening, Imani. You were speaking to me there. Jayla, are you ready with your rebuttal?
I am so ready.
Okay, she's so ready. Here we go. Jayla, waffles, 30 seconds on the clock. Go.
A delight created by the 9th century Greeks prepared with a waffle iron. I ask, what allows us to name restaurant chains off of such a creation? What allows us to film the fluffy nature as Sarah feels the geometric design? My side is superior in 3 ways. Number 1, access. Waffles can be found at breakfast chains across the world. Number 2, quantity. Krusty's Belgian asserts that 1/3 of cup mix makes about 1 waffle alone. And number 3, sustainability. Waffles have been feeding humans since the 9th century. Before our high-tech devices, we have to make them now. America, for the smiles of children worldwide and the integrity of breakfast for today and tomorrow. Vote waffles.
Ooh, all right. Brandon, what do you think? You're our judge today.
I think they both win, to be honest with you. I think they are phenomenal. I mean, this is what we do. We teach them to be able to apply these skills to anything, to any concept. It's not just about debate, but it's about critical thinking, communication, and it's a way of life.
Awesome. So impressive. And now I want both pancakes and waffles. So thank you guys for that. Imani, Jayla, Brandon, so great to have you guys on today. And again, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you can find more feel-good stories at goodmorningamerica.com. And now that we're all hungry, that does it for this newscast. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. Remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. Have a great Friday.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.